You're all set?
Sorry?
All set?
Yeah.
Mr. Savoy? All set? All set. Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for coming. We have a fairly packed house tonight. The first item of agenda on the agenda is the moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight, the pledge is being led by Jacob Franklin, senior at Centennial High School, and is actually the son of an old friend of mine. So thank you very much. Okay, please stand.
Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Jacob. All right, next item on our agenda is staff recognitions. Staff recognitions. Ms. Aries, thank you.
Well, good evening, President Pingarelli, members of the board, Mr. Savoy, and guests. We, of course, have some exciting recognitions for you this evening. A few recognitions that we're thrilled to have some students here joining us tonight. Those are our favorite kind of recognitions, and so we'll get right to it. We, of course, like to honor and recognize all the incredible academic achievements that our students have all across our district, but it's also very important that we recognize the hard work and the success that our student athletes achieve. And so we're very proud to have a number of them here with us and recognize those who have achieved some great success during our winter athletic season. So at this time, I'd like to recognize our state champion in diving. Daniel Muller is a sophomore at Centennial High School, and he has only been competing in swim for 1 year after focusing on gymnastics in his youth. As a freshman, Daniel finished 6th at the State Division II meet, and this fall, I'm proud to share, he achieved the highest score of any diver during the state championship, finishing with 518.25. Daniel, if you would stand so we can recognize you and congratulate you. So incredible, and we're going to bring him up in just a couple of minutes. Before we do, we want to recognize some of the other guests that he has with him tonight. His coach, Mandy Landing, if she'd stand. And do you have a fan club with you this evening as well, here to support you? We'll have them stand so we can recognize proud parents here with you tonight, of course. And we can't miss the proud principal from Centennial High School, Mrs. Lopez Lira. Thank you for being here as well. Very, very exciting. And so we'll get some photos of you all in just a couple of minutes, and then at the end, I know our board will have some comments for you, but big congratulations to you. also from Centennial High School and receiving great accolades. You might have recalled hearing a little bit about this, but on December 2nd at the Arizona Stadium in Tucson, Centennial High School faced off against Scottsdale's Notre Dame Prep and finished off their phenomenal football season with a 42-21 win against Notre Dame Prep High School, and they clinched the 5A state championship. This is an incredible achievement, but what's even more remarkable, it was their third state title in 4 years and the sixth in school history. A huge congratulations to the incredible football team from Centennial High School, and, well, let's give them a big round of applause. And so I'd like to have their team captains, who are representative, of course, of an incredible group of students, a few of them that were able to be here with us tonight, these team captains. If you'd stand when I read your name so that we can recognize you. Alex Escobar. Jacob Franklin. Christian Gomez. Ruben Beltran. Trevor Renfro, and Jordan Ware. Congratulations. And I'm not sure if their coaches snuck in just yet. Coach Hal Borhauer and head coach Richard Taylor, were they able to make it? I think Coach Taylor might be en route, actually. We'll clap again when he comes in. But obviously, we appreciate their leadership very much. And of course, the athletic director, Brett Palmer, we're so glad to have you here as well. So thank you, Mr. Palmer. Gentlemen, we're very proud of you and all that you do to represent Centennial High School, so congratulations to you. We'll get some photos of you in just a moment as well, but we have just one additional recognition for our athletics. You can have a seat. We'll get a photo of you here in just a little bit, and I know our governing board will want to give you some congratulations as well. One additional state champion, unable to be here with us tonight, but still feel like what he has done was remarkable. I want to make sure that we mention Blake Lorenz, a senior at Sunrise Mountain High School, who won first place at the Division II state championships in late October when he shot just 9 under, earning first place as a golfer. So we're very proud of that achievement. As I said, he was unable to be here, but we do extend our very best to him, to his coach, Nick Reiser, and to Sunrise Mountain High School for that exciting win. So big congratulations to them. Someone else I want to thank, who I see is here with us tonight, Mr. Mike Severson, who oversees all of our athletics. So, Mr. Severson, thank you for what you do. And we certainly know that these accomplishments, there's many more student athletes all across our high schools, and they do really, really incredible work, both in their academics and making us proud on the fields or on the course or in the pool. So we very much want to send our congratulations to all of them. We're going to be taking some photos of all of you out in our lobby, but I do want to see if we can have some of you stand so that our board members, I know will have some comments they want to make for all of you. So if we can send a team captain up to represent you, and Daniel, if we can have you come up, because I know our board members might want to tell you congratulations. Just pick one.
So how did you guys pick who was going to come up? I know you were the only one, but did you guys?
We kind of just, no, they kind of just pointed at me.
Okay. Well, thank you. Let's start with Mr. Sandoval, if you don't mind starting us out.
No, not at all. So, Daniel, right?
Yes.
So, my question is, have you mastered the triple Lindy that Rodney Dangerfield did back in the day?
In the process.
So, obviously, I just aged myself a little bit, speaking of that particular dive. But congratulations, without question. You know, being a year in and a lot of hard work, and sounds like a lot of natural ability as well. To your coach, parents, certainly all those around you, you know, academically, you know, it sounds certainly we realize a lot of accolades as a district, from an academic perspective, and certainly athletics as well. And, our goal always, as a district is to graduate individuals who are very well-rounded, adaptable, so not only, academically, but those soft skills. So as to all of you, as you take a look at the records and the scores, certainly important when we talk about athletics. I certainly benefited from coaches, teachers, and staff, back in, my secondary years, but it's also about what you build, through those sports, meaning, building the relationships and the friendships and how you work as a team, a lot of those soft skills that are certainly applicable to the workforce. So congratulations to all of you, to all your coaches, your parents, and staff, and thank you very much for your dedication to just being great every day.
Thank you.
Mrs. Doan?
Oh, I just want to say congratulations. That's a lot of hard work. And it's good to see that you know how to do it because life is full of it. I really appreciate the labor that you and your families and coaches have put in, and congratulations on a job very well done.
Thank you.
Mrs. Connect?
So Daniel, I love diving. I've always wished my daughters would have pursued that because I love watching it myself. But do you think that you'll pursue diving moving forward?
Yes, definitely. I want to dive in college.
Do you have plans for college?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure lots of doors will open for you. And for the football team, I was wondering, related to soft skills, what do you think you learn in football that you can carry through the rest of your life?
I would say just working together. Coach Taylor does a great job of instilling our motto, which is team, teammate, itself, and really putting the team first and, getting the job done as a team.
Thank you for that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mrs. Sejar Martinez?
Thank you, and congratulations to all of you and the leadership and the families, especially encouraging them to go to practice and doing their homework. If I could do high school all over again, I would, and specifically because I went to Centennial. I was a school mascot as well, so I enjoyed those football games. If you think about the countless hours that you've put in and invested in yourself, I know you mentioned team effort, but what motivated you to keep going on that toughest day?
I feel like it was always the end goals. Like winning state has been a goal for me since freshman year. Like when I got sixth, I really wanted to get first the next year because all the really good seniors graduated. But yeah, it was mostly winning state.
I would say it's probably the same for us. Me specifically coming back for senior year was definitely a goal to win state because junior year we obviously lost in state, and that was devastating to all of us. And all these captains right here, they all pushed the team, and we all tried our best to get back to state, and we won, so that was the best part.
Well, that's awesome, and congratulations to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to also say congratulations, and Centennial has a warm place in my heart just because our two daughters graduated from there, but it's been a while ago. I just want to ask Daniel, in terms of you did gymnastics first. Did that help you? I assume with your diving.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It did a lot, yeah. 11 years of that.
And I just want to say congratulations to the football team. You guys have been tremendous for the last, it seems like 100 years. So we really appreciate you. And thank you for all the parents and all the support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
President Pingarelli, I was remiss in that we didn't give a proper round of applause, I think, to thank the football parents that have
It's
joined
true.
us to support them. So if we can give them a big round of applause. And also the infamous Coach Taylor is here with us, and we want to recognize him. And Coach, we just raved about your team and these excellent leaders that you have here. So big congratulations to you and to Centennial. And I think if you don't mind, board members, if we can just go ahead and take our photos right here, since we have so many parents here with us tonight that might want to snap them. And our football team, since you're seated closer to the front, if you want to just make your way right up to the front here. And if we can get Coach Taylor in that photo, as well as Mrs. Lopez Lira and Mr. Palmer, that'd be great. And please feel free, if you want to get in front of me, go right ahead. And you'll have to squish together. Squish it together. Yep.
Get up there.
Don't be late to T-ball practice. Do you remember that?
Face to face.
Coach Taylor? Smile.
You guys have no idea who to look at. Just like- Yes, yes, thank you.
And one last big round of applause for those student athletes. And President Pingarelli, if I may, I have one additional recognition this evening. You'll remember what may seem like ages ago that we held a special board meeting in this very room to recognize the hard work across our district during our advanced ed accreditation process. Seemed like a long time ago now. But as you'll recall, this process is to really recognize all of the work that we do across our system and our commitment to continuous improvement. It was a collaborative effort by countless employees, and we really had an incredible team working to pull just a number of resources together and to navigate through our accreditation team visit, as well as all the work that led up to it. So I'm pleased to inform you once again that, of course, Peoria Unified received our systems accreditation, and we were so thrilled with that. But it is now actually official from Advanced Ed, and so while I think that certainly deserves a big round of applause that we achieved our systems accreditation, we'll to actually make it official, we are so thrilled to have the Director of Advanced Ed here with us tonight to present that official certificate to us. So we are joined by Ms. Toni Bedone and the School Quality Specialist, Bill Nelson. And so they've graciously joined us tonight, and we're just so pleased to have them here with us. So I'll invite them up to the podium.
First of all, from Advanced Ed, we not only congratulate you, we recognize that the work of Peoria Unified is always ongoing. And so it was certainly, I'm sure, a lot of work thinking about having the review and the event of it all. But really, what Peoria is known for is that ongoing continuous improvement that Danielle mentioned, and that you are constantly setting a standard of excellence and equity within your school district. This is the second time Peoria has achieved systems accreditation, and we expect to come back and see you much more often than every 5 years, right, Mr. Savoy? So we'll be back, but I recognize board members that we've seen recently, and so I want to thank the board for your leadership, because it does take a board to set that standard. And I want to thank all of the staff and the teachers and parents and students, because there's so much that they do through those surveys to contribute to that accomplishment and to really look internally at what can we do even better. That's what Peoria stands for. So we congratulate you, and this is way better than the banner that you used to have. We have this gorgeous plaque for you, and we want to congratulate you, especially Linda Thompson. I understand Executive Director Linda Thompson is here. Yay, Linda. And hopefully we can take some kind of a photo to make sure that you have something to let your folks know in the district. So congratulations from Advance Ed and from myself and from Bill Nelson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle, can we take a picture with the board and Linda? I know Linda was,
Be wonderful.
thank you.
Sure. Go right around.
All right, thank you very much. And before we go on to the board recognitions, I know that a lot of you might want to go out and go to dinner or do something else other than being at the board meeting. You're welcome to stay, but if you'd like to leave, we won't take offense to it. So this would be a good time. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Shanna. All right, let's move on then to staff recognitions. Let's see, I'll start tonight with Mrs. Sehar Martinez.
I just have one. I took the opportunity to review the employee bulletin coordinated by our PR and with HR. I reviewed the employee bulletin February 8th at 4 p.m. is the retirement meeting, and I know that saving for retirement doesn't sound like it's going to be here, but it catches up real fast. So the fact that you guys are taking the time to educate our employees that we have a great system in Arizona and that they save for retirement is something that needs to be recognized. So I appreciate you taking the time to educate our employees on that retirement benefit. So thank you so much.
Mrs. Connect?
Thank you. Two things I wanted to mention. On Saturday was the Save Our Schools rally down at the Capitol, and I haven't heard a final count. Somewhere between 1,000 and 3,000 people showed up there to kick off the legislative session for 2018 and send a message to our legislators and the governors how important it is for us that we get the support that our students and our teachers deserve. It was a beautiful day, and I was very pleased to see some of our board members and some of our employees there as well. So that was a wonderful experience. And yesterday, I had the opportunity to attend the Westmark State of the State address that Governor Ducey came out and spoke, and he said a lot of positive things, and it was a very, very well-attended event. And I was especially proud when the governor talked about the Peoria Unified School District, and our ranking is in the top 10 for academic growth. So it made me very proud.
Mrs. Doan?
I just want to say thanks. I was unable to attend the retreat, and I've got a lot of material up here and a lot of information, and I appreciate everybody that got that together for me. And it looks like things are pretty well organized, and I really appreciate that. I thank you all.
Mr. Sandoval?
Thank you. Yes, so to kind of piggyback on what Ms. Connect stated about the Save Our Schools march this past weekend, it was very inspiring and a proud moment to see some of our teacher leaders out there just continuing to show their commitment, to, certainly inspiring and nurturing the creativity of all of our youth. That said, my recognition is certainly somewhat of a broad sweep, but just a welcome back to everybody. I hope everybody had a great break, well rested. It's great to see your faces again, although, we haven't seen, it's only been a couple of weeks, but welcome back. And looking forward to this next semester and continuing to improve as a district and continuing to develop and again and nurture and certainly graduate youth that is confident and ready for the 21st century workforce. So thank you and welcome back.
I have no recognitions tonight. So if we could move on to the next item.
Madam President?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Savoy.
That's
You just,
okay.
yeah, thank you for, yeah.
President, I just snuck my way in there. I have just a couple of more, but we've been talking so much this evening about Centennial High School, and we've been talking about athletics. I'd like to share with you really some terrific news about a robotics team at Centennial High School. They are currently in Boston, Massachusetts, at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and they are collaborating with teams from Romania and Italy. And we are incredibly proud of these students and this accomplishment, and we wish them very, very good luck. In particular, their teacher, Mrs. Diana Denton, that they have a good showing there. I'm sure they're freezing. My second recognition, we spoke about Peoria High School last month and the outstanding performance of our FFA students, Future Farmers of America, and they continue to roll on. We have another group in the FFA program that competed in the Arizona National Livestock Show in the competition called Prepared Speech. And that was last week of December, and I'm proud to announce that sophomore Alexis Thompson, a sophomore, won third place for her speech on labor laws, immigrants, and Arizona agriculture. So thank you for allowing me to share that, Madam President.
Very good.
Great, thank you so much.
Welcome.
All right, let's move on to the next item, 4.1, for the election of the president of the board for 2018.
Mrs. Pingarelli?
Yes.
I know we briefly talked about this at the retreat, and I've given it some more thought. And I know that this board for a long time has really talked a lot about increasing our level of diversity of representation of our community. And we also talked at the retreat about bringing fresh voices to the table and providing other leaders an opportunity to develop their skills. And so giving that some thought in the history of this board and some of the people that have stepped up in the past, I would like to recommend that we give the opportunity to Mr. Sandoval to be the president and Mrs. Doan to be the clerk.
Well, then let's see what everybody else thinks. I guess let's go to Mr. Sandoval. I know on our retreat last week, you had expressed your desire to be either president or clerk.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, I mean, when we had the discussion and, it was in and around, how we do kind of as a board, as we work as a team, kind of diversify, our voices a little bit, by, having somewhat of a system in place to kind of, share these roles. And it's for me, I've always benefited from, having different lenses, take a look at certain subjects through, whether it be through a particular seat or just having a voice in particular meetings. But, I think it is a good thing, as we take a move forward, as a board and how we, help and certainly govern and work with every stakeholder within this district, that, it is important, to diversify even our voices, as a board. So, I mean, I don't know if that was a motion or if we're even there, but, I think, yes, I mean, and, I would, thank you for that, Mrs. Connect. I mean, I would absolutely, love to put my name in the hat for the presidency of this board, and certainly would be honored.
Then is there anybody else that is interested in being the board president for 2018?
Well, I'd like to see, I've seen a lot of work from Mrs. Sehar Martinez. I've seen a lot of interest and energy. And I also see that Mrs. Martinez has a connection with the teachers and with the Hispanic community that we haven't had in the past. And I would like to ask her to be the president myself. Move for that.
Mrs. Pingrelli? I am definitely interested as a proud product of this district and past teacher of this district. I'd be honored to take on that responsibility, seeing that I just experienced what board clerk is. I agree, Mrs. Connect, to having diversified voices. My only concern is with competing priorities. I know Mr. Sandoval does sit on a lot of boards. Currently, he is sitting on the pause, which is an illegal quarrel between a second pause. So my concern is heading into a year where we're going to select a new superintendent to lead this charge. It takes a lot of time and research, and going through a year of that experience, my concern is competing priorities.
Well, from my last year working with Mrs. Sehar Martinez, it's been a pleasure. She has shown her leadership this last year, and I would feel very comfortable in having her as the board president.
Ms. Pingrelli, if I could just, I guess, respond to competing priorities. Just so everyone knows what the PAWS is, it's the Peoria Historical Society. My certainly interest, when asked to sit on that board, was one that is no doubt an extension of what my commitment is to this district. Certainly, my deep history from a family perspective in the city of Peoria. My aunt was the first, certainly, female Hispanic business owner in the city of Peoria. So my interests were certainly personal, to definitely uphold and maintain what the city of Peoria was built on, and to uphold and maintain the tradition of excellence, that the city of Peoria continues to follow. That certainly is a mantra, of our district. So, I don't see him as competing, because I know the Historical Society does have a relationship with the district, as it, has had programs where it's integrated the district to certainly educate our students on the history of the city of Peoria. For me, I see more of an extension to my commitment to the city as a whole, but really, which, means, my commitment to this district, because everything that we do as a district, and I think everyone knows this and certainly understands that a thriving district equates to a thriving community. So, which, certainly extends to a thriving city and state. So what we do here as a district, impacts many aspects of our daily lives, from, economic to crime rates to home values, et cetera. So certainly it's complementary.
All right, is there any other discussion or motions? No other discussions? Then I would like to motion to have Mrs. Sehar Martinez be the board president for 2018.
I'll second.
Mrs. Doan?
Well, because it's been made clear, I'll support the decision.
All right, members, please cast your vote. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my screen, not the screen. It passes 4 with Mr. Sandoval abstaining. All right, congratulations. I'll have you take over.
All right, thank you. The next one is to elect the governing board clerk.
Mrs. Martinez?
Mrs. Connect?
For the same reasons that I noted before, to have diversity of opinion and perspective on the board, and to have fresh voices and an opportunity to provide opportunities for growth and development for board members, I nominate Mr. Sandoval for the clerk.
Mrs. Pingrelli? Or any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Mrs. Pingarelli for the clerk.
Mrs. Pingrelli?
I would be honored to be clerk this year. I think I've showed my leadership this last year, and I definitely come prepared, and it would be an honor for 2018 to be board clerk.
And I would like to add that my experience with Mrs. Pingarelli, we were able to communicate and clarify the information going forward. So I would definitely agree with supporting your being clerk.
Somebody needs a second on the motion.
I second.
So do we have a motion first for David?
I did
I
move.
mean-
I moved.
Mrs. Doan, I know a couple years back, you had expressed that you might want to be the clerk. Is that no longer something you care to do?
I wouldn't be averse to it at a different time, but my life is so overwhelming right now. I don't think I have time to put in the extra time to be a clerk. I'm being a full-time grandmother, working full-time and volunteering, and just, it's over my head right now. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I did make a motion for Mr. Sandoval. Did it not get a second?
I didn't hear a second.
Motion passes 4-1 abstained. Congratulations, Mrs. Pingrelli. Before we go on, I do want to acknowledge to the Peoria PUSD community, especially my fellow teachers, I am honored as a past Peoria teacher to lead the charge. I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but in the 127 years of PUSD, there has never been a woman of color to sit in this seat. So I am honored tonight to be a testament of our commitment and adhering to the call to practice to inclusion practices, which directly impact our students. I have a favorite quote of mine, Vernee Myers. She says, "Diversity is inviting people to the party. Inclusion is asking them to dance." So this year, I hope everybody brings their dance shoes. So with that being said, let's go forward. And number 5, discussion consideration of governing board meeting schedule for 2018. Thank you very much. During our study session, we had an opportunity to discuss the times, and it seems at this point, Tuesdays and Thursdays work for the governing board. We also discussed the timeframes, and 6 p.m. is the requested time. Going forward, we are considering future study sessions, but as of now, this is what is been discussed. Judy, do you have any questions? I know you were.
Oh, it looks good to me. I like this calendar they put together, that I got from, I'm gonna keep it and write notes in it.
Mrs. Doan, I believe that was echoed by all governing board members. They appreciated the calendar, so thank you for that.
Very good.
Was that you, Mr. Savoy, who put it together? Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right, next agenda item. Oh, thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the calendar and the time.
I'll second.
Passes 5-0. Thank you. Next item is the consent agenda item. Would any governing board members like to pull anything?
Public comment?
Oh, thank you. First, before we get to the consent agenda item, public comment. Request to address the governing board regarding matters not included on the agenda item. I did not receive any green sheets. Did we receive any? Thank you. Now moving on. 7, consent agenda item. If I remember, nobody would like to pull anything, so do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion passes 5-0. Next item, address agenda and consider adoption or recommended changes. Anybody would like to change anything from the governing board? All right.
We need to
A motion?
move that.
Okay, excellent. Next item, 9.1, information on the interim superintendent search and selection process. Dr. Carter Davidson.
All right, good evening, President Sejal Martinez, members of the board, Mr. Savoy, and guests. Tonight I'm just here to give you a brief summary of where we are in that interim superintendent, the selection and application process. So I put together for you just a couple of slides to highlight some bullet points that I'll just go through tonight and certainly answer any questions that you may have when done. First and foremost, please note the position for interim superintendent is posted on the ASBA website. And right now, we're directing any traffic that's coming to us straight to the website for our potential applicants to move forward and to fill in their application. As you can see in bullet point number 2 there, that they have reached out to applicants as well as they field certain questions and are getting questions from different people from around the state. They, as well as us, we all will respond to any questions from applicants. Board members, you have an opportunity to ask questions as well to ASBA, and as does district personnel. ASBA is collecting the applications on our behalf. As you can see in number 5, they'll be hand-delivering those to us, and we'll work, in particular, I will work with you to review those applications as well as to set up interviews for the interim superintendency. Number 6 there talks about how we will be meeting with applicants inside executive session. And the important thing that I wanted to highlight here is that similar to, or I guess connected to number 5 there, when we get these applications and when we look at them in executive session, that's primarily done to honor the confidentiality of any of the applicants that are going through this process. After interviews are set, We will, in my office, work closely on reference checks and background checks of the applicants that you are choosing to move forward. And then, of course, our hope and desire is that by our next board meeting, January 25th, we'll have set up some time to do this process, and then perhaps even that evening to have an offer ready to go for interim superintendent up until July 1st. As you can see, I did put a little bullet point there that this process will be saving the district approximately $2,000 as we in HR decided to partner with you and ASBA instead of having them do it all on their own. Pretty simple process, and excited to be a part of it, and simply will stand for any questions you may have.
Mrs. Connect?
Go back, Dr.
Yes, ma'am. Where would you like me to go?
So, probably said it, and I was reading things and got a little lost. When would we get together? Or would we, as a board, have an opportunity to get together and have conversations?
Yes, ma'am. Right now, the posting is currently open until filled, but I do know that we are already receiving applications. I have not put my hands on them yet. Once I get them and once I can verify that I have an applicant pool to bring you, I'll work closely with Mr. Savoy and Diane, of course, to set up hopefully some opportunities for us to get together and to review those.
Mrs. Martinez, would it be your intent?
My understanding at the end of the board, when we get to the agenda item to ask for future agenda items, we would bring it up then to put that in the list.
Thank you.
Mrs. Pingrelli?
I just had so the Arizona School Board is posting this on their website. How are you telling internal candidates here? I guess how are you promoting it internally?
Yes, ma'am. We have sent an email blast to our entire administrative team to make them aware of it. So that will cover anyone from anyone in a chief role all the way down to any type of director or coordinator type of role. And I've also asked those individuals to inform their staffs. And I know that I believe I was working with Ms. Airy there to also post that position with the ASBA link. So from our website to the ASBA website as well.
Okay. And then when you get the applications, they come directly to you. So if it's an internal candidate or an external candidate, you get those, and you only share those with the board?
Yes, ma'am. And also, just to be very clear, I think the board had asked that you get to see all of the applicants, so I will bring all of them that I received to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Sandoval?
Thank you, and Ms. Pingrelli, thank you for that question. I had one similar around the communication, I guess, strategy to making sure that we do make this a very objective process. Couple questions. So on the slide prior to this one, it mentioned that the ASBA will collect and organize. What fashion will they be organizing the applications? I mean, will they be stratifying it at all? Will they kind of send the applications in a way that shows their top 10 and, you know, we still get the pool, but do they have their opinions on their top candidates? Or?
I have not seen how that's going to look yet, Mr. Sandoval. With us choosing to do it on our own, not only did we save money, we also saved over 2 weeks of time. So I do believe if we had hired them to do the full process, they would have had something like that. I believe in conversation with Mr. Highland, what we will see are all applications, but I'm guessing he will probably also put them in a manner that showcases that they have all the credentials of the application itself. So I know they had to provide a resume, they had to do a letter of interest, some of those things, but I don't believe they're going to come with any type of scoring rubric. I think that'll be for us to work together on.
Gotcha. Okay. And I know, I mean, knowing that we want to make a decision by the 25th of January, do I have that right?
That is certainly proposed. That is a timeline you guys can modify as you wish.
Okay. With that said, I mean, it sounds like we'll be adding an agenda item to a future board meeting to define the timeline, because I think that is our next board meeting, right? January 25th. So, I mean, that said, to be able to be able to make a decision by the 25th, you know, if we kind of work backwards from that date,
right,
you know, to understand, you know, when we may need to have kind of a special meeting to review all these applicants and be very informed, to be even able to, I guess, recommend a candidate by that timeline. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm wondering if it does make sense versus having it on a future agenda, does it make sense to have a discussion around, when we should have a special meeting to look at the applications?
I know you have a very busy schedule, but I also know it'd be very important to have time together to go through this process. And I do believe by at least middle of next week, I should have a large handful of applications. Right now, as I said, the position is currently open until filled. With your guidance, I can also close that timeline for any applicants who are working through the process, if you feel that would be necessary to give you just a hard, fast timeline and cut off that process.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good thought. I'm wondering if, should we have a deadline with regard to when individuals should have their applications in by? I think that'll certainly help us maintain that January 25th selection date, if you will. Yeah, exactly right. Thank you. And is that something that we do now? I'm trying to follow protocol as well.
Let's see if Mrs. Doan has any comments, and then we can have a roundtable discussion. Mrs. Doan, thank you, Dr. Carter Davidson, for putting the presentation. This is essentially what we've discussed at the study session, is that we really wanted a process, and this is what was presented, and we wanted to see if you had any thoughts before we moved forward. I know that Dr. Davidson said that they posted it. When was the date that you posted?
I believe it actually went out live on Tuesday.
Tuesday. So that's January 9th. Do you have any questions, Mrs. Stone?
No, it looks good to me. I do agree that we want to have a close date on it because otherwise we won't have time to look at them, We need to talk about that, but it looks good to me. I think that we'll have a nice pool, some local people. I'm more interested in people in district than anybody else, to tell you the truth. So.
Okay. Then, if I remember correctly, we said we were interested in looking at closing it on the 19th of January. Does that sound accurate?
We certainly could do that.
Because we wanted a couple of days, either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, 22nd, 23rd, or 24th. Correct me if I'm wrong, for an executive session. And I appreciate you also highlighting in the presentation, that way everybody can have access, because this is a personnel issue. It will be done in executive session with the governing board. Any other comments on dates, times?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think the 19th seems like an appropriate date, allowing many to submit their names in the hat and allowing us time to take a very thoughtful approach to looking at all of given all the applicants, they're, certainly deserve diligence.
What did you say were the days we might convene?
22nd, 23rd, or 24th of January, because we meet the 25th.
How's everybody's schedule on those days?
Well, depending on the length of the meeting, I do have, on the 23rd, Amy has speech therapy at 2. That's the only set meeting I have that I'm aware of.
Are we proposing, after work hours, I'm assuming, on one of those days, or? If that's the case, I'm fairly open.
Okay, in the evening?
Yeah.
Mrs. Connect?
We could do the evenings on the Monday or Tuesday.
Okay, so Monday evening, the 22nd, everybody is open, and then on the 23rd, anytime after 4 o'clock, Mrs. Doan? Okay.
I'll make it work. Either one.
All right, so let's since everybody has availability on the 22nd and we don't know the extent of how long this meeting is, and Miss Airy, do we have anything going on in the district on the 22nd, 23rd?
President Ceja Martinez, members of the board, I don't know that we have anything district-wide per se. I would just caution you for open meeting law, once the position closes, we could certainly provide the applications to you, but if you're going to be discussing all of those applicants in an executive session, they do need to be properly noticed, and then they'll have to have time to respond to that notice to indicate if they want to be discussed in executive session or in a public session. So to allow for that amount of time, I'm afraid, I'm not sure how you would be able to allow time for mail from the 19th to the 22nd.
Great point. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Madam President, also, is it also not true that we have the Booster Club parent dinner on January 23rd?
That's the evening of the 23rd,
Okay,
yes.
so in the evening, if you're doing it at the end of the day.
So could we close it on the 18th and post it on the 19th, that's 24 hours, and then the 22nd meet?
So if we closed it on the 18th. Okay. President Ceja Martinez, I believe as long as we can get the notices out early on that day and allow time for mail on Saturday, then that should work.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like the discussion is that we'll close the posting, Dr. Davidson, on the 18th of January. We'll set up for a posting on the 19th, and host an executive session on January 22nd. The good news is, if anything comes awry, there's a little bit of buffer that we know we can't meet on the 23rd. There may be the 24th on Wednesday for an executive session. So let's shoot for the original request of closing on the 18th. Governing Board, any discussion on that?
I can't do Wednesday evening,
Okay.
but I can do during the
I'm not
day.
sure Kathy could do
Okay.
the 23rd or the 24th.
No, we're still staying with the 22nd. Yeah, okay. Let's move forward. Dr. Davidson, thank you for that. We're going to
Thank you.
request that we close on the 18th.
Okay.
And one more question, I just wanted to clarify, and if whoever the candidate is chosen, can they apply for the superintendent position?
In our communication at the retreat, I had received that guidance that if a person was to apply for this position, you would not want them to be considered for the actual superintendency. So in the application, and actually when you go to ASBA's website, you will see that we are asking these people to simply serve in an interim role, not putting themselves as a candidate for the superintendent itself.
But it's not a policy or a law that prevents anybody, and that's assuming that we go with ASBA as going through the bid, correct?
Yeah, ASBA aside, no, I think what we were trying to alleviate was anybody to say that they had any type of favoritism in the process. But certainly, as a board, you have a lot of choices and a lot of opportunities to guide us. I think if I recall the conversation, it was simply to protect us and make sure that any applicant had a fair and equal opportunity.
Thank you for that. I just want to make, Mr. Sandoval?
I guess I'm trying to understand your train of thought, because I think one of the things that, and I had certainly expressed is, that this role is certainly, we don't want to minimize it, right? It's certainly
Yes,
still
sir.
a very grand role for our district. And, and thank you. I think the process, again, allows us to be, certainly more of an objective process. That said, I don't know that the individual who is selected as the interim should be eliminated, from the opportunity to become the superintendent. Certainly it's not guaranteed, but, as we go through that superintendent's process, I don't see any reason why the interim shouldn't be given the opportunity to put their name in the hat there as well.
I agree.
I agree also. I know you've brought that up in the past. So I think that the interim should be able to throw their hat into for the superintendent.
With that,
That's-
oh,
Sorry. Ms. Connect?
my vision for an interim would be an individual who's, in addition to running the day-to-day operations of the school district in a temporary manner, would be instrumental in ushering this school board to help us to navigate towards making the decision for a permanent superintendent. And therefore, I think it would be awkward and kind of cumbersome if that individual was also a candidate for the permanent. I see the interim as interim, as truly temporary, with a different and unique role than the permanent superintendent. And I think if we're asking that individual to help us, to guide us towards a decision-making process while working with staff and the board, I think that would be a conflict.
Any other comments?
No, I would,
Really good fit.
and Dr. Santarelli did not have a lot of direction or for the board when we chose our last superintendent. So we did not use Dr. Santarelli's guidance in that process. So I understand where you're coming from, but I still think that an interim should be able to go on and put their hat into the ring for the superintendent.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, I think at a minimum, we should give them the option, right? I mean, if the individual does, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, if there is a certainly known and perceived or a conflict, that individual from a character and leadership perspective, should certainly, not consider the superintendency role. I think we should absolutely, give them the option to throw their name in the hat without question.
Any other comments?
Madam President?
Mr. Savoy?
Just a point of information, currently on the application process at ASBA, it does state that the interim superintendent is not to be considered for the superintendent spot. So if the board's direction is that they can be, we need to make that adjustment so that it doesn't filter people out who may potentially apply.
Right.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, and it sounds like the majority of the board wants to proceed with that. Anybody who receives the interim position has the ability to apply.
We can make that change. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any more questions?
No.
It says
we're just giving
information only,
direction now.
direction. Thank you. Next agenda item is 9.2, information and discussion on the superintendent search and selection process. Mr. Hicks.
Martinez, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. So 9.1 was about interim and 9.2 is about superintendent, right?
Yes.
So I confused that. Can I go back to the interim one?
Yes, may we?
Please? So one option we have, and there's precedence with this, and I'm just throwing out this, we kind of discussed it a little bit, but not formally at the retreat. But back in the day, long before my time, when we had a superintendent Kohler who left, the board at that time asked Dr. Kellis to come back. He too was a former superintendent, to help the board through the process of interviewing and selecting another superintendent. So we do have the option of asking our former superintendent to come in and serve as an interim. He doesn't want to be permanent, but he knows the organization, and I think would be a very stabilizing effect. And we do have that option in addition to going through ASBA. And I'd like to ask this board to consider that.
Any comments, questions for Mrs. Connect?
So then with your comment, then Dr. Santarelli would have to go through the application process?
Not
on
if we
ASBA?
decided he didn't have to. We could just ask him to come back.
Well, for me, I'd like to go through and see who is willing to serve.
Any other comments? I would agree for equal opportunity. If Dr. Santarelli is interested, he could go through the ASBA process that the governing board as a majority has agreed upon, and we follow that process. Thank you. All right, going forward, Mr. Hicks, 9.2, superintendent process.
Madam President, good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Designee Steve Savoy, and colleagues and community members. So just as you previously alluded to, first talking about the interim, now we're talking about the search firm process to select a search firm to help with the process of identifying the permanent superintendent. And so really just wanted to confirm, so we had a little bit of, during the board retreat, talked about this, and so just really quickly, just go through the timeline just to bring everybody up to speed. As of January 5th, we reviewed, talked around, looked at all the different changes, made the changes as discussed during the retreat, and on Monday, the RFQ was sent out to all the firms that are on the list. I don't have the exact number. I know it's over 10 firms, but all that were on the list was sent out with the request that all proposals would come back by 2 p.m. on January 22nd. We'll collect all those, put together a packet for the responses, put together a confidentiality statement, and then also a scoring rubric, and then provide those packets to the governing board the night of the 25th. Then the governing board members will go through and review the proposals. Remember that it is confidential at that time because you're in the middle of an evaluation of that. You'll bring back send back to me your scoring rubric and all your evaluations of those firms. I'll put it together, and then I'll put together an agenda item for the February 8th meeting, at which time then you will publicly deliberate all your evaluations. Sorry, talking above this. So then you will have the opportunity to see the scoring of everybody and then talk about the scoring of everybody, and at that time then select a firm at that point. Then we'll turn around and issue a purchase order on February 9th, whichever firm the board selects that night. So just wanted to confirm, so we talked a little bit during the retreat. This was really just to confirm so that everybody knows here is the expected timeline. And I'll stand for any questions.
Mrs. Doan?
Good to me.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, thank you for putting this out, Mr. Hicks. It seems to be in line with what we discussed, so yeah, it works.
Mrs. Pingrelli?
I just want to, I know in our last superintendent search, if you could just go through the dollar amount. I know before it was, we had to look at the, I guess, the quality of what we're looking at, and not just the dollar. We're not just going with the cheapest.
Madam
bid.
President, members of the board, so one part of the RFQ that we discussed at the board retreat last week was to look at the qualifications of, and part of the request that we have publicly said that cost will not be our number one deciding factor. So normally when we go through a quick procurement process where we're getting quotes, written or oral, we go with the lowest price. So whatever, if they meet the scope and they meet our work, what we're saying we're expected, you've met the criteria, we go with the lowest price. In this instance, we have identified that price is not the number one, and so you will be reviewing the proposal. Price is to be considered, so if you remember, we had an A, B, and C on that document. C was price, so it's the third. So you're looking experience, qualifications, and scope of work and their ability to do the job. And so that's what, we'll give that information to you of what the RFQ stated, and just a quick little tutorial on the 25th before the board meeting, so you could take those packets back and understand, and then have a full amount of time, about a week, almost a full week, to review all those packets and then submit those evaluations back to myself for me to put the board agenda together for the next week.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Connect? Thank you again for the timeline. I know there was a lot of confusion about interim and then the superintendent process, so at least this is available for everybody to review, easily go on to the website. So thank you very much, Mr. Hicks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Say, Martinez, sorry.
Mr. Sandoval, sure.
One more quick comment. So within the evaluation process, I mean, part of that process, we can still go back to even the top candidates or top two candidates to even negotiate pricing, right? I realize, they're going to have a quote, but I think one of the things that we talked about is, where there's some of the scope of work may be dependent and certainly on the shoulders of, I should say, of the district, where we may be able to reduce that particular line item by that dollar amount within their scope of work and their quote.
Madam President, members of the board, we would have to identify what change in our scope of work that we're expecting them to do or not expecting them to do, and then do a best and final. Normally that is with all the qualified candidates that would do that with, and that could prolong the process, because if we're going to deliberate on the board meeting day, if we're going to go into that and say, hey, we would like to laser out and not have, they would all have a chance to respond, they need time to respond, and then we'd come back at a later time to approve a vendor at that point.
Gotcha.
So
yeah,
it is an option, but it would also potentially come with a few days delay depending on when the board can get back together.
Gotcha. And I think, if the dollar amount is substantial, waiting a couple days to make sure that we're not paying for a task that we're going to be heading up, we should just take a look at that.
The board will have the opportunity to evaluate that and make that decision.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Hicks. Going forward to 9.3, approval of the 2018 Governing Board Representatives on the district committees. We had an opportunity to discuss this at the study session. Is there a motion?
Oh, actually, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to let Mrs. Doan know that I know she wasn't able to make our study session last week, and so the names were kind of filled in. If there's, I filled in for the CTE.
I'm happy
I know,
with it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure and give you the
Thank you.
option, and I would
Looks
back
good.
out if you wanted it. Okay.
In that case, I move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda, 9.4, report and discussion on local and state, federal legislative issues and activities. Mr. Savoy.
Thank you, Madam President. I just have really a couple. The first is a federal combined local regarding Representative Trent Franks. We know that his congressional seat is open, and as of today, we have 16 candidates vying for that position, 13 Republican candidates, 3 Democrat. That primary election for that position is on February 27th, and then the final election will be on April 24th. So I just wanted to share that information. A number of the local people in our area are considering, or not considering, they are threw their hat in the ring. I have a couple of local issues, but I'd first like to pass it on to Mr. Hicks to talk about our state update. This week with the legislative session opening up, we have a number of things we'd just like to share with you briefly on the governor's budget. Mr. Hicks?
Thank you very much, Madam President, members of the board. So it's already been alluded to, and so we already know that the legislative session started this week. It starts with the state of the state with the governor, and so he presents some big ideas, and as the week goes, a little bit more gets released, and by Friday afternoon, releases the full details of the governor's budget. And so, not a surprise, education is a focus this year. And so, on Tuesday, the governor released just a general press release with some identifying some elements of his budget, not going into all the details, but provides some focus. Of course, he's going to continue inflation funding for the M&O side and growth of students. and he's providing new construction. New construction was already going to be provided. He's going to actually proposing to do some debt service, so do some bonding for the construction instead of spending pay-as-you-go dollars for all of that. So that'll actually provide some savings. He's going to increase building renewal, or proposing to increase building renewal by $35 million to $51 million. Now that I'm assuming, not knowing all the details right now, that continues the building renewal grant process, which you have heard me complain about the bureaucratic nature of that process. And so it is nice that he's adding money, because if you look at this year, there's approximately $30 million. They've spent $27 million in the first 5 months. So you can see the need is out there. And so definitely appreciate the additional proposal to put more money into building renewal for repairs of buildings in our facilities. $35 million is good, but the process is still really bad. It really should go back to the old allocation formula based on the age and square footage of buildings, so that you can continue to maintain them and use some of the money for preventative maintenance to make sure that they're maintained. The governor's also continuing the 1.06% that goes to classroom teachers, and he has said that he would actually push that into the base pay and make it perpetual, which would then allow us to move off of the stipend amount that we give to the teachers and just give that as a permanent raise, and everybody get their raise going forward. So that would be a positive. Expanding all-day K. So if you do remember, he did put in an element of all-day kindergarten for those school districts that had 90% free and reduced. He added $4 million to expand that. I don't know where that goes, but I'm telling you, I'm pretty sure that the number will not get down to where our district free and reduced rate is around 42%, so it won't impact us at all. Also, expand the computer science teaching program. I'm actually not familiar with that at all, so I don't know exactly how that will impact, but that's $2.5 million. Increased funding to JTEDs, and so that will have an impact on us. I haven't talked to our director yet, Dr. Beltram, on this. And so we put $2 million down. I do believe this would apply to us and have some increase in funding. If you remember, when they took away the $31 million, they only restored $29 million. I believe this is to make that final bridge to put back that additional funding that was cut. I just do not know what that impact is for Peoria for us right now. And then there was also an additional $7.6 million for technology projects and assessments. The big news is that part of his plan was to restore the district additional assistance, or the additional assistance within the state. Right now, there's in excess of $370 million being cut to school districts and charter schools across the state. This would take a 5-year plan to fully restore all the cuts. And so the first year would put back $100 million, the second year $168 million, then climbing to $236 million, then going to $303 million, up to the $371 million. So this would be a dramatic impact for Peoria. First year out of the box would probably in excess of $3.5 million increase to our district additional assistance. For those that have been going to board meetings or been on the board for a long time, you know I've been saying this for in excess of 4 years, that the biggest issue we have right now is capital. Although we have lots of other issues, and do I believe we should pay our teachers more and do more? Yes, I do 100%, but when they made the cut to take our capital down up to an 87% cut, that was something that was not sustainable for school districts across the state, and Peoria as well. We've done a better job because our voters approved the 2012 bond that has done a good job to fix a lot of things, but by and large, being cut in excess of $15 million every year has a dramatic impact on the district. And so this is really good, but the reality is that this is just the governor's budget. It does have to start in the legislature to start with what are they willing to approve before it comes to him for approval. So that is the state of the state budget. And so when I get the details, normally around noon tomorrow, I start plugging them in and seeing the exact details and start going through that. And I'll give the board an update on that next week.
Thank you.
Stand for any questions if you have any questions on that.
Ms. Martinez?
Mrs. Connect?
So just two things to clarify for me in case I'm thinking wrong, you can correct me. Our district really has close to somewhere around $300 million in outstanding capital needs right now, right?
Madam President, members of the board, we have had an assessment done that has a lot. So it's hard to say exactly because it hasn't been updated, but at the time there was 280 identified, and with curriculum needs another, I think you could roughly say that, yes.
Does that
roughly
include the building of potential new schools or no?
The official original assessment, I do not believe, had the building of new schools.
Okay. And our school district probably still won't qualify in the new schools construction formula because of our geography, correct?
Madam President, members of the board, the SFB criteria still remains the same, which they look at a district in total, either your K-8 band or your 9-12 band, and you have to be in 20% excess of your capacity before you get growth, and so we would not qualify in any of our projections for SFB schools.
Okay. And my last question is, does the governor's proposal allow for flexibility that district additional assistants can be used for salaries?
Madam President, members of the board, yes. Right now, district additional assistants, right now it all stays in district assistants, but way back in the day when we were fully funded, a lot of districts moved money from the district additional assistants into M&O, and so yes, that could happen.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? All right, Mr. Savoy?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Just a couple things on a local perspective. I just wanted to inform the board about the State of the City addresses for both Peoria and Glendale. They are coming up. Just want to make sure you're fully aware of those, March 1st and March 27th. More detail will be coming from Ms. Savage to make sure that you're informed of that, and please let us know if you'd like to attend. One of those is an evening event, and one is during the day. Peoria is during the day, Glendale's at night. I also just wanted to take a quick moment. We were informed this week of the passing of a person who really was a foundational bedrock person in our district, Mr. Mel Huber, former superintendent in our district. He was a gentleman who retired about the time I was coming in, but he was a person that you heard many stories about, who really built Peoria Unified School District. And I know there are hundreds of teachers and administrators across our district today that have that same work ethic, and they emulate what he started for us. But I certainly just wanted to share with our community, and certainly with our board, that we lost a true Peoria Unified School District individual this past week. And then lastly, I just wanted to say that we received some sporadic reports of rainy day schedule. It did rain on Wednesday, so yes, Virginia, it does rain in Arizona, and we did have some rainy day schedules. Thank you, Madam President. That concludes our report on the update.
Thank you. I do want to highlight as well, and this is 2018, and I believe we have 2 governing board seats that will be up for re-election this year, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Going forward, 9.5, request for an agenda items for future governing board meetings. Mrs. Doan? Mr. Sandoval? Yeah. Mrs. Pingrelli?
I don't have anything, so we're good to go on the other, on the 22nd. Doesn't need to be added. Okay.
Mrs. Connect? Okay. With the caveat that we agreed to the executive session for January 22nd, nothing needs to be added. Next on the agenda is informational reports. As always, you can go online and view them. First one is the district enrollment report of the month of November 2017. Thank you very much. 10.2, budget and facilities planning and construction report. Goes over what's been going on. Schools, HVAC, painting, landscaping. During the study session, Mr. Hicks provided the schedule as well, so thank you for that. 10.3, report on upcoming meetings and events. Highlight January 24th, the parent support organization dinners at Paseo Verde Elementary School. So if any board members are eligible to go, or available to go, I should say, please let Danielle know.
Mrs. Martinez?
Mrs. Connect?
Another item that's not really directly connected to the district, except I believe some of our schools are participating. It is on January 16th. It's Stand Up, Speak Up, and Save a Life. It is a very large anti-bullying program put on at Grand Canyon University. And like I said, some of our students will be participating. And they have a Facebook page, so if you're interested in Stand Up, Speak Up, and Save a Life, you can check that out there.
Thank you for sharing that.
And you said that was, I'm sorry, January 16th?
Yes.
Yes?
Madam President,
Mr. Hicks?
just for clarification, I believe the parent support dinner is the 23rd and not the 24th. So that's a typo up there, so.
Thank
just
you
for all
very
those
much.
paying attention and watching.
January 23rd is the Parent Support Organization Dinner at Paseo Verde Elementary. Thank you. All right. And the last 10.4, draft agenda for the January 25th board meeting. And are there any other items like to be readdressed? Okay. I just need a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
Passes 5-0. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.